And we're live. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to the 55 and counting participants that are joining us this morning. My name is Oliver Dixon. I am the moderator for this event. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining us. We really, really do appreciate it. And welcome to the Agility Mail and Guardian webinar. With me today in this webinar is Avon Middleton. He is the publisher of Top Gear. I'm also joined by Kiki Du Plessis. She is the board chairperson of Agility Africa. And I'm joined by Mandla Lamba, Dr. Mandla Lamba, who is the founder CEO and also serves on the boards of the various structures of Agility Global, Africa, and South Africa. Good morning to my panelists, and good morning to the audience. Good morning, Mandla. I'll start with you. I'm going to start this, Mandla, with asking you this question to just sort of give us an idea around where Agility finds itself today. Many people would have followed the journey of Agility over the last couple of months, perhaps over the last year or longer, and a lot of changes have taken place in terms of the structure of the organization, in terms of the fiscal position of the organization, as well as the trajectory the organization is embarking on, the various partnerships, deals, mergers that are happening. Can you give us a brief summary of where Agility is today in comparison to where it was 6, 7, 8 months a year ago, and what the next couple of months for the organization will look like?
Where we are now, I think is very important. Thank you so much, Oliver. Where we are now as a company, we have been blessed enough that now we started this as just Agility. But today we have Agility Global, we have Agility UAE, UAE under the leadership of Mr. Khan, Siraj Khan, and we have Agility North America that is also unfolding in the next week. We have also Agility Africa, and we have Agility South Africa. So where we are now, it's an exciting journey. It's been exciting and more exciting every day. The beauty, therefore, is that we were granted the privilege to be the first ones in the market at an African level, which allows us to pioneer what would become the livelihood of EV in Africa. A lot of strides have been done. We've gotten into bed with Absa Bank, and we've gotten into bed with Capitec Bank. Capitec Bank financing our vehicles and Absa Bank financing our franchises. We have other transactions that have been done. We've recently closed a transaction with a company called Grid Cars, where we will be manufacturing our own, we will be building our own network. Currently, there's 150 units of EV charging points in South Africa, and these are shared among different automobile companies. But now with the deal we did with Grid Cars, it's going to make Agility the biggest network operator, single operator in the grid in South Africa.
That's fantastic. Obviously a lot of changes in terms of the structure that you've just outlined for us there. But other than the banking partners who are the financing partners, really the financing muscle for those who are interested in either through Absa, purchasing and setting up a franchise, or on the consumer end, those who want to purchase an actual two-wheel vehicle. And you whispered to me not too long ago about other vehicles coming into the market. I don't know if we'll be talking about that today or if that is still embargoed. But other than those sort of stakeholders at the moment, who are the other stakeholders that form part of this? Talk to us in particular. Talk to us about the deal that is being structured right now. Brilliant article in the Financial Mail and the Business Day not too long ago about the Agility deal with Visual International. Talk to us about the status of that deal, where it finds itself, and why that deal is important for the future of the organization.
Okay, I'll start with our partnership with Asia, with eBuyGo in India. We signed that partnership with eBuyGo, which allowed us to gain access to their to gain access to their ecosystem, which now that ecosystem is being used by us as agility for the entire continent and above. And we're the only ones who have the ecosystem that has been developed for us by Dr. Khan and his team in India. It's been an amazing journey we've had with the team in India, and it continues to grow. Matter of fact, we were discussing this morning, we've got investors from India that want to put money. There's a fund in India that wants to put $200 million in agility. There are other Bollywood stars who also participated in the e-Go capital raising, who also want to put money in agility as well as we speak right now. Then we come to the transaction you are referring to, which was quoted on Business Day and also on the Financial Mail over the past week. The transaction that is happening with Visual, I think it's best I come in this angle. First and foremost, besides agility, Oliver, I also own a company called Verity Hest. I work there with my partner. His name is called Tembegile Mzansi. We invest in companies on the JSE. So it happened that Visual is one of the companies where we had put in 34 million rands in that company. So we had bought 34% of the company in Visual. You remember they were suspended on the JSE. We came in as the saviors and we saved the company and brought it back to trading again. It started trading again on the JSE a month and a half ago in April. So when the deal closed, we thought, I said to myself, we already own 34% and we've been trying to get agility listed. Why not approach the company? We're already 34% shareholders. Then I would have to be precluded from voting because I'm also a shareholder in Visual, owning that 34%. So that now led to this deal where we said we're going to put Agility South Africa. It's not Agility Africa. It's not Agility Global. It's not the whole of Agility. It's just the South African ops being acquired by Visual in a share swap transaction that would lead then based on valuation, but it will definitely trigger change of control where we will then be owning the control of the listed entity, but because of the 34% that we already own in the company.
That's good to see, and it sounds like an incredible opportunity to expand, I guess, the reach of agility by getting it through this vehicle, being able to raise capital on the stock exchanges, and we'll get it to a later stage about what the purpose of that capital will be, what you plan to do with that capital raising, how much share exposure is on the capital markets through the JSE. We'll talk about that, but I want us to talk product for a minute. You have how many products in your lineup, and I'm curious about the product lineup, what's coming. Again, like I said, you whispered to me some great ideas around some of the other vehicles that are coming onto the product offering. But talk to us about the basic product offering that you have at the moment, the differentiation between those, and how are they moving like hotcakes?
Okay, currently we have Wild Grace, which retails at about 175,000 rands. This is a personal commuting vehicle. And then we also have a Lodex, which is a delivery scooter. Lodex is a delivery scooter selling at 35,000 rands. And then we have a student bike. It's called RTF, Return to Freedom. And then lastly, we have one that we were supposed to be launching on the 4th. Unfortunately, we were hit by the lockdown restrictions a few days ago. We were to launch that one. It's a Somizi brand. It's called Agility Somizi. It's a collaboration we did with Somizi to bring that to the market.
That's amazing. I'm curious about those price points. And Avon, I'd like to bring you into this part of the conversation. You obviously know what the consumer market looks like. One is the hesitancy for consumers to move into EV space. I'm sure that consumers have anxiety about energy instability, the Eskom grid, the cost of electricity. Although even with the rising cost of electricity, an EV vehicle is still a fifth of the cost of running a petrol vehicle or a diesel vehicle. That notwithstanding, are those price points attractive to the consumer market and to the retail market. Mandla spoke about a delivery vehicle there. What are your thoughts?
Thanks, Oliver, and thanks for inviting us on here. So the electric vehicle landscape is definitely something that consumers have anxiety around, and there's a number of reasons for it, some of which you've mentioned right now. But I think ultimately it's an unsupported industry at the moment, and what I mean by that is, you know, the peripheral industry that should be supporting electric vehicles is not as progressive as perhaps it should be, or as perhaps it is in other markets. And so there's a lot of anxiety just around, as you said, you know, where do I charge it? How much does it cost? Load shedding, the cost of electricity, you know, there's all those sorts of things, because at the end of the day, what we're used to and what we know is better at the moment, as far as what we know. So I think as a consumer, there's a lack of education, there's a lack of knowledge of what this whole living electric space is about. And I think the onus is on companies like Agility, the media like ourselves. That's our role, is to educate and sort of assure consumers that it's okay. And it actually, what I can tell you from experience is that the products themselves are fantastic. The product works. The product is you know, it's progressive, and it's something that we've never actually experienced before. There's so many benefits to it. And just to answer your question around these particular products, pricing is a key. It's a key discussion point, because in most markets, what we should be doing is incentivizing the use of electric vehicles beyond the mechanical benefits that they have. But in South Africa, there's not much of that. I'm sure Mandla would agree with me there. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, electric vehicles carry a higher tax on them. It's about 8% higher, if I'm not mistaken. And so finding a price point that is competitive is a lot more difficult. What Agility has been able to do, and this is an opinion, is that they've been able to offer products at what I think is good value for money as far as electric vehicles are concerned. Particularly in the small business space. Small businesses right now, as we know, are struggling. Small businesses are in a place where, you know, lockdown and COVID-19 has hit small business hard. And be able to, you know, adopt vehicles like this at 35,000 Rand, for instance, a delivery vehicle that comes in at that sort of price is I think, pretty good. And I think the one thing that's going to change our economy right now is small business, right? So in terms of my opinion, I think 170K for the Cafe Racer, I think it's called. Some might think is quite high, but I think as far as the challenges of bringing product in at competitive prices, I think it's not too bad. It's just the peripheral industry that goes around it that I think there's a larger discussion point.
Krippy Dupesley, I'd like to bring you into the conversation.
Yes.
Avon and I Avon just spoke to me about the different anxieties that consumers may have, and that is, where am I going to charge this thing, right? But Agility took care of that preemptively with the battery swapping station that forms part of the franchise offering. Let's talk about that. I see that there are 4 different types of franchises you can own. Talk to us about each of those and what the differences are between the 4.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We are very excited to have the 4 different franchise types, or the 3 different franchise types. The other one is still a big secret. So the first one is the Agility Expand. That is for your bigger national footprint, and that is like a normal big dealership where you can purchase any of the bikes and you can purchase any EV cars. Then we've got the Agility Express. That is more on your in your shopping centers and more in your normal suburban areas that you can get it. And then lastly, we've got the Agility Mini X. The Mini X is for your urban areas and for your rural areas. It's a very exciting container that you can connect to Wi-Fi. We will have a swapping station at all the Mini X. We will have a coffee shop. You can rent to buy the bikes. There's different options. We will have salesmen in each and every of the franchises. The salesmen will be trained. There will be at some of the franchise facilities will be training grounds where people will get proper training, and safety comes first for us, because the main thing is we must make sure that people know how to drive the electric scooters. They are not like the combustion scooters. They're very easy to drive. They're very light to drive. And at each and every franchise outlet, we will make sure that training is being given. Whoever is purchasing or renting these vehicles. We are very excited about the franchise model. I think it's the first time in the motor industry for something like this that is hitting a continent to make it possible for each and every South African and African to become a franchise owner, to basically put their entrepreneurship at heart and become part of this family. And we're trying to make mobility to give access to each and every African, because transportation is not a right. It's not a privilege. It's a right. So we're very excited about the franchise models.
That is absolutely true. Transportation really is a right in this country. Sticking to the franchise model, excuse me. On the lower end, you have the Mini X, which is a franchise you can purchase for around 250 to 300,000, or slightly more than that. And at the higher end, you have Agility Expand, which the input cost there is anything between 30 and 50 million rand. Does ABSA, which is the franchising partner, franchising financing partner, does ABSA provide financing for all of these different franchise models? And what are the different prerequisites that a prospective franchise owner should think about when wanting to buy into an Agility franchise?
Okay. Yeah, you're quite right with the pricing. The pricing start the Mini X from 250. The Express starts from 500,000, and then the Expand starts from 1.5 million rand and up. It all depends of the due placing of the franchise, where it's going to be, in what shopping center it's going to be. We have a very due diligence process that we have to that we follow before we allocate a certain area to a franchisee. We also got a 6-step franchise process that the applicant has to follow before the approval for the final franchise. We work in conjunction with ABSA. ABSA got a full franchise process for applications, and ABSA finance 50% of the value of the franchisee. So say, for instance, a franchise is R1 million, ABSA will finance 500,000, and the franchisee will pay the other 500,000.
It seems that the technical issues here are persisting, because I think we may have lost Mandla on the live stream. But Avon, is a franchise dealership ownership model one that is attractive to markets? Like Kriki says, this is a fairly new type model in the South African market. and dealerships are across the country as a result of COVID downsizing. I was speaking to a friend of mine who owns a dealership, or at least is a partner in a dealership, who won Dealership of the Year several times over the last decade. And I was on a call with him the other day, and he said, look, from our high-end vehicles, we were only able to move 7 vehicles because we couldn't get any of these imported. People aren't coming into dealerships anymore. People are making calls, and if they arrange for a test drive to be picked up from their home and that sort of thing. Talk to me about the future of franchises from your perspective, and do you think that the agility model, franchising model, is one that's attractive to prospective franchise owners?
Yeah, so I think we should start that discussion with sort of almost negating the COVID-19, what it's done in terms of retail on any level. So, I think every dealer or retailer has struggled in the past sort of, 16 months or whatever it's been. But beyond that, I think the retail model for all vehicle sales is a changing model. It's something that's constantly evolving, and we're learning from markets. I think to say people are not visiting dealerships, I think they are. They're just not visiting dealerships in the way that they used to. So in the past, where people wanted to buy a car, they would take a Saturday or the day off on a Wednesday, and they'd go and they'd visit each dealership and look at the cars and chat to the salesman and see what was going on. Now that entire process has gone online because it's there and it's available, it's easier, and the information is easy to discern. But they still visit the dealership to ultimately conclude the deal. For the most part in South Africa, I know that a lot of dealers also deliver cars now, so that's something that's becoming a thing. And I think this idea of boutique dealerships, so much smaller space, is becoming a thing as well. But of course, there's still you still have to service your vehicle, you still have to go and get parts. And so that idea of having space that I need to go to every 6 months is still real, and people still do that for those reasons. So I think that the dealership as concept is going to remain for some time. Of course, when we talk electric vehicles, that whole maintenance part is completely different, but we can chat about that later. Just coming back to your question, I think as a franchise, the idea sounds great, but in our experience over the past sort of decade, this onset of people buying electric cars are still relatively slow. And I don't have figures for sort of two-wheeled mobility at the moment. Maybe Mandla or Priki can shed some light on that. But I can certainly tell you in the space of electric cars, it's still very slow. In 2020, I think 100 electric cars were sold in the whole year. And despite a contracted market, I think it's still a fairly good yardstick to see 100 cars is not much. And I can tell you that in this year that number hasn't increased much. I think the best-selling electric vehicles at the moment, they're quite high-end, is Porsche and Jaguar, but they're selling combined 6 cars a month if they're lucky. So the adoption is very slow. And so as a franchisor, you've got to be saying, well, the idea sounds great and the future sounds great, but are people going to buy? That's ultimately the conundrum. Are people actually going to buy the products? And are they going to buy them in enough numbers that would warrant a good business? And that's the question that, I'll be honest, in terms of four-wheeled mobility, I'm not so sure it's happening. In two-wheel mobility, I certainly think there's a better chance. And I certainly think from a commercial point of view, there's a much bigger chance, because as I said before, small businesses, and it's not just two-wheel mobility. We can talk about electric buses where there's a real argument and there's a real business case, because the business case is simple. There's a pre-arranged or ordained space to travel. So if you think of a corporate scenario where, go with me, a large mining operation has to buy some buses to transport its people to and from where they live every day. It's a preset amount of distance. It's not a bus that's going to be traveling 800 kilometers or whatever the case is. that business case makes sense. It's low on emissions. Things like charging is something that you can manage. Similarly, commercial vans, taxis, delivery bikes, those sorts of things. I think there's certainly a big case for that. And I don't know. I think there's, from a franchise point of view, if I was a franchisor, I'd be asking the question: is the commercial attraction good enough, and is it going to warrant a good business in the future? Versus the consumer side of it, and I just my argument is the consumers right now are still relatively apprehensive.
To all the viewers and audience members that are a part of the stream, remember that you can ask us questions. Just click on the chat box, type your question away, and the panel will be responding to them. And I will open up the rest of the broadcast for some questions to the panelists. But Manda, I just want to bring that back to you. And I'll ask you two things. One about after-sales support and technical support for franchise owners. But let's first get to the future outlook concern that everyone has around the long-term benefit about the benefit only kicking in on the long term. When I was at the Agility Joburg launch, I sat next to a very interesting gentleman. His name is Winston Jordan. You'd be familiar with him. And he says that they have been over the last couple of years installing charging stations for electric vehicles across the country, and they will be doing this for the next 10 years. They don't anticipate to make a profit in the next 5 years because they're waiting for adoption to kick in, mass adoption to kick in, before that becomes profitable. As a business owner in the value chain of Agility, is that a fear you have? And if a prospective franchise owner has that fear, how do you respond to that? Manda, just a second. I think your mic might be muted there. You just want to unmute yourself.
I like the fact that you've brought up the issue of Mr. Jordan. We signed a deal with his company. On the 29th of October, they'll be delivering to us the first 50 charging stations. These are universal charging stations. They are not charging stations only for bikes. They charge any vehicle. They could charge a Jaguar, they could charge a BMW, they could charge a Tesla. That's the first 50. The second 50, we're going to be getting it in December before we go into Christmas. What has been said is very true. It is not easy for adoption of the industry where there's no support from government for that industry.
Yeah.
For the industry to be enticing for people to say, I could opt for that, is if the government is involved in that industry and mostly in the pioneering of this one, because this will be the first chance in the history of governments globally to participate in something that could also generate revenue for the government long term, not overnight. If they play a role in the infrastructure development of EV, what we are doing now, the budget that we had to put in to build 100 stations within the next 6 months in South Africa, in points where people can be able to travel between Joburg and Cape Town and not be worried that there's no charging station in this area, I won't be able to get there. That is not a job that is supposed to be done singularly as a private sector. It's supposed to be supported by the government because that's infrastructure. But unfortunately, we'll still see how long our government will take to adopt this. Going to answer your question, I am not worried much now because we at Agility have realized for adoption of the EV in South Africa and Africa, infrastructure is going to be important. So we have now assigned some funds to development of infrastructure, starting with these 100 stations. I guess, Oliver, you've got a kettle at home to make your tea, to boil water for your tea. You wouldn't go and buy a kettle unless you know there's a place where you'll plug it in your house. People will be able to adopt as long as they know where the vehicles will be charged. People don't have to be looking for charging points. If we're going to have only a certain number of charging points, then don't expect people to buy the vehicles. So our long-term at Agility is not just selling and manufacturing EV. Our long-term is building the infrastructure. We've just entered the Nigerian market a few days ago. That's one of the things we're embarking on. Fortunately, in Nigeria, we're coming from the government point of perspective. You know, in Nigeria, it's a setup that's going to be mostly supported from government point. The same way we've entered Zimbabwe, where we've got support from the government. It's the same way that we're praying and hoping that in South Africa, our government will also come in and say, guys, where do we meet you? You were at the launch with us, Oliver, in Durban. I'm happy to know that the government of KZN, under the leadership of Mr. Sihle Zikalala, has welcomed us, and they say they are willing to work with us. But we would like the whole industry, the whole government nationally, to adopt EV. Remember, we're living in times of COVID. A lot of companies don't have money for this infrastructure. We are lucky we are new. We have not lost money during COVID. So we've got the funds to deploy. We've got the patience to wait, because it's not going to be overnight. So to answer the question, there is the truth to what Avon said. There is truth in what he is saying. But I believe that the ability to create more expedited model or strategy in the development of infrastructure, putting networks across the country, will lead to a quicker adoption, which is what we are driving now. We have a target that at least by December next year, Agility will have not less than 300 controlled charging stations across the country in South Africa, starting with the first 100 in December.
Not too long ago, Kriki, I was in Camps Bay. I was staying at a boutique hotel towards the far end of Camps Bay. Anyone who's familiar with Clifton Fourth Beach will know the Pick and Pay that I'm talking about. So just around the corner from there, I was staying, and a friend of mine called me up for lunch at Sea Point, and I thought, hey, let me grab an Uber and I'll be there. And on my way down to the lobby of the hotel, I realized that they actually have bikes that they rent out, but not electric bikes, bicycles. And they rented it out for 50 Rand, and I gave them 50 Rand. And I took one of those bikes and I cycled all the way up to Sea Point, had a fantastic lunch, and cycled back. But this is a hotel. They don't worry about overheads of keeping that bikes. Let's say I want to move into that space and say, hey, why don't we just cultivate a cycling culture over there? Not too many years ago, the former mayor of Johannesburg, Park Star, had the foresight of building cycling lanes. Those could be turned into EV lanes or whatever the case may be. If I buy into a franchise and say I put down, and the franchise costs R1 million, and I put down the 500,000 Rand pre-deposit, and ABSA meets me halfway, and ABSA says, here's another 500,000 Rand, we support you. And I don't meet the volumes month on month for 6-8 months that I need to meet. What happens to the relationship with the financier ABSA in that instance as a franchise owner? And typically, when you buy into a franchise, the financier would like to see a business case before they put some money down. Do you assist in that business case? And what institutional support do you give franchise owners who might think, hey, I might not be able to meet my monthly sales targets, my monthly battery swapping volumes, and I might not be able to meet my own overheads, let alone a repayment on this loan that I need to service. What's your response to that?
Thank you for asking the question. Very interesting question. And being in the franchise game for quite a few years, we had to adapt a new way of franchising. It's no use in holding back in the way everything has been done in the past. So the same way that technology is changing, the way of franchising is changing. So Agility have a full sales and marketing support team that will assist the franchisees. We got a national sales manager that will oversee all the franchisees and will assist with fleet transactions. We partnered with another group that will do rent-to-buy options for the franchisee to assist the franchise a franchisee to maybe buy 10 bikes over a period of 60 months and make the payments as cost effective as possible, to make the rentals of the bikes from, say, 1,200 Rand. And the franchisee can use that model to rent the bikes to entrepreneurs, and the entrepreneurs can then pledge their take-a-lot contract or they miss the delivery contract to the franchisee, and the franchisee will assist in a program, entrepreneurship program, right through the period of the contract that the entrepreneur have. So we've got so many different options in the way we assist a franchisee. So it's definitely not in the olden days, like I had a steers and I paid royalty over to the franchisor, and I had to swim. Here we got teams working hand in hand with the franchisees to assist with different means and ways to help to reach the KPIs.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I'm now going to open up to questions from members in the stream.
If I may add, Oliver, to what Patrick was saying, I would love to add to that. Agility doesn't sell vehicles to the public. We do not sell to the public. We only manufacture and feed the franchise, and the franchise sells to the public. So the way we work, it really supports the franchises. Number two, Oliver, we have no doubt that they will be successful. We are the first EV company in the whole world to come with a model of swapping batteries free of charge. It makes it attractive to the public to know that I'm going to buy a bike. I'll never have to worry about charging it and paying for charging, or I don't have to worry about buying petrol, because you just go to a nearest Agility franchise dealership and you swap your battery for free. So with that model, we expect that once these dealerships start opening, there will be traffic. If people know that they can swap the batteries for free, no one will go and buy a vehicle and spend money, and knowing that they will still continue to spend money during these difficult times. So I'm positive that our model will suffice.
And I want to take us to some questions here, speaking specifically to that. Nomalanga Tasana in the live stream asks, what must I do if I want 95% vendor financed shares? I hope I'm still on time. I always watched expired videos. If you did make it on time, fortunately for you, we started 15 minutes late, Nomalanga. But talk to us about vendor financing shares and just vendor financing altogether, Mandla. Cricket already told us that the financier, Absa Bank, meets you halfway with 50% of the cost. What other options for capital raising are available for prospective franchise owners? And is vendor financing one of those tools and options at their disposal?
We are working on a model, Oliver. There will be those that will not be approved by the bank, but they have what it takes. But because of their financial behavior over the past years, where they mismanaged their credit rating and for some reason are declined by banks, we will look at every case in a very particular way. You will find a company has got what it takes. It's just that it can't get the credit. We will look at that and say, how can we do this within? Because I also need to explain that we do not wait for a bank to pay or for Absa to pay us the money for us to build the franchise. Oliver, we launched the dealership we did the unveiling of our bikes in Cape Town launch on the 28th of April in our own dealership in Cape Town. That's an Agility dealership. We build the dealerships ourselves before they get financed. So we don't wait for the bank to say, here's the money for the franchise. We spend our own money and put up the dealership. So when a person buys it, it's already up there. We spend on it. This means, Oliver, we have the power to study circumstances and say, but this one, yes, they messed up here and there. if we handhold them for this period, can't we cut out a way for them to get this franchise? So there will be a particular and peculiar cases that will be looked at differently. As far as us financing 95% for we can't do it for the franchises. We can't do it. We would probably say someone has got the 50% and they are lacking the other 50 and the bank turn them down. We'll look at other reasons that would lead us to say, let's meet them halfway ourselves.
If the battery swapping is free on the consumer end, who absorbs the cost of battery swapping, and what is the cost of battery swapping? Is it the franchise owner or is it Agility?
No, it's Agility.
So you pay the franchise owners for swapping batteries?
We pay a certain percentage of the cost of charging.
Oh, okay. That's fantastic. That was a question that came through on the live chat from an audience member. Kriki, I just want to bring you back in here.
And to also, for clarity purposes, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Oliver. For clarity purposes, if you allow me, right now it's still early stages of EV in Africa, but I need you to, the viewers, the people who are watching here, our audience, I need them to think, say 6, 7 years, because I know that it's going to be expedited. I don't believe that it's going to take the full 10 years for EV to be fully adopted in Africa. I don't believe that for a second. I believe that within the years like 2026, we'll have a sizable amount of people using EV across the continent. So I need us to take our minds ahead in the future and say, if for instance, in say 2030, no more EV, no more petrol or combustion engines. Now we're talking full EV. Can you imagine when a day comes, it may not be now, but it will in the future, where the plug of combustion engine will be pulled out and the whole world moves fully into EV. Now you can only imagine at the time, and you came in early, you bought a franchise early, you have no baggage of having to spend to buy a swapping station. We fit it in ourselves. It costs us as Agility. We put it in. You don't buy, you don't maintain. We do all of that. So I would say this, from the point of charging, it's not going to be profitable overnight. But from the point of sales, it will be, as long as charging is available.
Everyone, in the business model, Agility speaks about artificial intelligence. It's a massive buzzword across the motor vehicle industry, across the world. Elon Musk use it all the time. The likes of Panasonic use it all the time. And someone interestingly in the audience asked, is wireless charging a possibility in the future? Just from a technology perspective in the vehicle space, is that a thing that's possible?
Can you repeat that again?
There was a question for Avon from someone in the audience asking, is wireless charging a possibility in the future?
So look, I'm no engineer. What I do know is that the technology is rapidly progressing. Battery technology and the surrounding industry, charging and the infrastructure is progressing at a very rapid rate. And I know that OEMs, large OEMs such as the Volkswagen Group, are investing a lot of money in R&D. They're acquiring companies that are specializing in the space. I'm sure you know Elon Musk has had huge investments into battery technology. So what I can say is the technology is probably going to be available in the future. I don't know how sort of feasible that would be in a personal home sort of scenario, but I could certainly imagine driving into a battery charging station, parking your car on a mat, and it charges automatically, that sort of thing. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't know, but I would imagine that it would be possible. What I can tell you is the technology is already quite impressive. I recently drove a Porsche Taycan. It came to my home. It has this really fancy charger that links to my smartphone. I can sort of program when I want the car to charge, when I want it to stop charging. I can pre-program whether I want the air conditioner to turn on before I get into the car. The charger links to my smartphone, the car links to my smartphone. So it's all, I mean, it's really impressive technology as it is. And as I said, it's progressing at a rapid rate. So I would certainly imagine that kind of progression would happen quite quickly. I think on the whole, what that leads me to is just as a consumer, it's this entirely new world that we have to sort of understand. So if you can imagine your 3310 back in, I don't know, 1998 or whatever it was, versus your iPhone 12 that you have now, that progression of technology has taken place over, 2 decades or whatever it's been. And I think in the EV space, that's what's going to happen. If you bought a Nissan Leaf 8 years ago, I can tell you that your electric car experience is very different to if you buy a BMW i3 at the moment. And that's what we need to, that's what as consumers we've got to sort of tiptoe over and step over, just to sort of educate consumers out there. If you buy an electric car right now, your manufacturer would give you or sell you a wall box that you could install at your home, and this is a box that is, in a sense, would allow for the fastest charging possible. And if you have 3-phase power, that could increase, which not many personal homes have, but that could be done. But one of the questions that we had was, okay, so if I have a Jaguar and then I go to a braai at Mandla's house and Mandla has an e-Golf, will I be able to charge my car at Mandla's house? And those are normal questions. How many times have we swapped chargers for our phones? Hey, do you have a charger? Hey, do you have the right charger? So these are all the learnings that this entire industry is going to teach us. There's a whole bunch of jargon. We have to learn new words. We're not going to ask for 95 or 93. We're going to ask for, do you have a charger? Is it an AC or is it a DC? Is it a fast charger or is it a supercharger? There's all this new world of technology that we're going to have to learn. And it's going to be a handhold walking process for quite a long time. And companies like Agility, I can tell you what they're offering now is going to be far advanced in terms of what they're offering in 10 years' time, because the technology is just going to continue to change. So, yeah, I would imagine that, whatever we've seen in movies or, whatever we can imagine, I can tell you that stuff is already on the cards. And I think in the next year, and this is an opinion, but mark my words, I think in the next year, where 30 minutes to charge an electric car that might give you 80% of range, which is in our context right now, that's quite good. But I can tell you in the future, it'll be 5 minutes and you'll have 80% of range, and that will improve and that will improve and that will improve. So yeah, it's a technology that's going to change and grow at a pace that's going to be way beyond what we think right now.
Manda, 3 weeks ago,
if I may add up to that as well.
I just want to add up to that, and then you can respond to that. 3 weeks ago, President Cyril Ramaphosa finally put out a presented.
Can I add to the charging question also?
I want you to combine the two answers here. And in that address, the president said companies can now generate their own energy up to 100 megawatts. Without having to go through the protocols of contacting SARS, of getting government approvals and all of that, right? And so obviously wind and solar energy comes into that space that makes the charging cost, that reduces the charging cost tremendously. Is that an investment you're making in terms of R&D, research and development going forward for the charging offering of the vehicle? And as Avon now said, that the technology is rapidly going to change. Are you aligning the organization to be able to keep abreast with that change?
When you ask questions like that, you must expect the honest answer from me. You already know me by now. So I'm going to start first with the question that was the first one that my brother Avon was answering now. We at Agility are building a buggy, a double cab buggy. I'll start there. It's self-charging. It will not be able to do 100% self-charging, but I can bet you it will reach 40% self-charging capacity. It's coming to the market next year. before the end of next year, we will see an agility bike on the streets in South Africa, obviously ready to go into the market, fully fledged in the continent. And it won't be just be selling in South Africa only. We're going global with it.
Sorry,
so,
Manda, did you say a bike or a bakkie?
A bakkie, double cab pickup.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, self-charging. So right now we own a company. We just acquired a company in Zimbabwe called Zimtalk, founded by a young man called Dana Kakutama. Through our structure there in Zimbabwe, we've been selling the other vehicles, other brands like Teslas, like other brands of EV. We've got quite a number of clients. We've already sold over 30 vehicles in Zimbabwe and have delivered. All these vehicles are charging at home using the same method that is called a wall box charger, charging from home, and they are solar powered. You could imagine there are technical glitches in terms of electricity and shortages, so they rely entirely on solar with a backup system that empowers a side battery that when the weather is not favorable, it's able to still charge to some extent. So I believe that already there is a progress in terms of battery charging and facilities, given the fact that also you look at the bakkie that we're building, that is going to be, we're manufacturing, that is going to be self-charging. I think it will be the first one in Africa that self-charges when we drop it in the market. Back to the question of the government. Oliver, I'm not going to be hypocritical. I've never been. I choose to be very honest and frank when I answer questions. And if you allow me to do that with this question, then I think we'll learn somewhere together. The government is doing what the government believes is right. But I believe that also it suffers from what we call a cognitive dissonance. We don't have the money in South Africa to build infrastructure. In order to produce electricity or energy, that's infrastructure. You need money for that. You will not get that money from the local capital markets. You're going to have to go outside to tap into investors, foreign direct investors, to bring the money. Like I was telling you, we have a fund in India that is promising to put $200 million in agility. One of the things we had to defend was the land expropriation, because the people are saying, we're going to put the money, but you are promising to take the land. So the question is whether the government is giving us the opportunity to do the 100 megawatts or whatever size of volume of energy we can. The question is the people are supposed to bring in the money, to give us the money to do that in South Africa particularly. What kind of comfort do they have over those funds? Because until that issue, Oliver, has been dealt with proper, we will continue having promises from the government who again contradicts itself in action. That's my answer to your question, sir.
I have another question to you, specifically about, and I want us to wrap up the product and franchise end of this conversation so we can move to the share and investment end of this conversation. But I've got a question here from one of the audience members. This question is from Lizzie Malewa, who asked, will the franchise owners be actively involved in the everyday business of the company, especially those in consortiums? Do you want to clear that up and give us an answer to that?
Yes, if you own the franchise, you'll be every day involved. What we only do, we put a team that assists you, that handholds you until we feel that now you are ready to run it on your own, and then we no longer provide anyone to assist you. So every franchise, when you buy the franchise, you own it. Even when the bank finances you, you own it. It's not our franchise. It's your franchise. It's your own business. So all we do is provide support.
Anel Dreyer asks on the same conversation, what is the capital profit margin? I would assume specifically for franchise ownership. When you buy into KFC, they give you an idea on what your margins will be on a single streetwise 2 unit. Do you guys have any sort of idea around those numbers at this stage?
It would depend on the area. It's not easy to just say this is how much it would be. It depends on which area will that franchise be, what kind of traffic there's a lot of research that has to go into that.
And another question on the coming in from the chat box, and this is a product related question. what is the weight limit of the Load X? And I would add, what is the weight limit of all the products on the offering line at the moment?
There's something also we forgot as I'm answering this question. We forgot also to speak about the ecosystem. As we are going to go to that answer, we forgot to speak about the ecosystem of agility bikes. Agility bikes have got an ecosystem that is amazing. We were talking to one of the, actually we are closing a transaction probably in a week or two from now with one of the delivery companies in South Africa. One of the things that attracted them to our bikes is the RFID in our telematic systems. The ability to track all our bikes, you will be able to track it using your phone. You'll be able to see how much load is on the bike using your phone. If the load is because of someone carrying a girlfriend using a Lodex who's supposed to be delivering food, now decided to pass at a girlfriend, take a girlfriend and drop a girlfriend at work, you will know. That's one of the benefits of the agility bike. And then the other side of it, it's what we call telematics for a facial recognition app. The facial recognition app on our bikes is amazing because when you buy it, immediately you would go through that process where your face has to become, when you switch it on, it captures your face and records your information as the owner. So if you're going to have a second driver, you're going to need the second driver. It gives you the option to say, yes, I'm adding a second driver. But if it's going to be one driver, it's just your face. So someone can take your bike and have your your bike and have your key and say, now I've got it. Without that face, you can never start the bike. So that's one of the things that agility bikes have. They are intelligent bikes. And I believe without a doubt that they are what I call the iPhone of mobility, because they have a village, a beautiful village of different systems cohabiting in the same, inhabiting the same environment, working together. And every day, our engineers are working towards improving such to ensure that we are ahead of the curve. Because if you look at the market in Africa as a whole, Oliver, we are not just the pioneers of the industry. It also makes us competitive players at a global space. So I just wanted to make sure that I don't forget this part. As far as the weight of our bikes, I'll tell you one thing. They are very heavy. There's no EV that is not heavy. They are all heavy. Even the Lodex is heavy. It's not easy. Not one person can just push it. A child cannot push even the Lodex. They are all heavy because of the battery. We can't hear you, Oliver.
I can hear you, Oliver. I think you've muted yourself.
Oh, apologies for that. Thank you so much for that. And that's why I want to wrap up the product and franchise end of the conversation. Look, there are many prospective franchise owners who might still have questions around franchise ownership, the process, for instance, like now I want to get a franchise, where do I go? If you are a part of this webinar at this moment, the Agility team will send you a full step-by-step guide on how to on what information is necessary to get a franchise, what boxes you need to tick, and what the processes are that you need to follow as a prospective franchise owner. I want to move over to the share structure, and I want to start the conversation with this question that I received from Fikle Khadebe, who is in the chat here, and he asked, Kriki, I'd like you to answer this question. When can we begin to expect getting dividend payout on the shares? As the chairperson of the board, Kriki, when can they start expecting dividends on shares?
Well, when we're in full operation, but the main thing, as Manta said, always presence over profit.
But do you mind expanding on that?
I think we first want to establish ourselves in the market, and do our countrywide rollout, and then we will focus on profits. The main objective here is to get EV established in Africa.
Right. Manda, you guys closed your capital raising initiative through social media a few days ago, where people were able to, through Facebook, were able to buy Agility shares. How much were you able to raise from there? And more importantly, how many shareholders are from that end of the capital raising end? And to those who bought in, what should they expect as far as shares are concerned?
There's some sound that is really hitting to the ears. Someone has to mute somewhere here.
It might be Clicky's audio. Let's try and mute Clicky. It did make that sound earlier.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Manda.
Yes, so we have in close, Oliver. We are closing our crowdfunding exercise on Friday, the 2nd of July, for good. It's closing for good, 2nd of July. I'll explain in detail. As you know, we've been active in the capital markets for a long time, investing in different companies on the JSE. Veritas has been in business for 14 years. And it has been doing these investments over these years. We sat and studied. It also brings us to the reason why Agility was later started. I've participated, even now. I got a call from Michelle a couple of weeks ago. She was telling me, if you don't know Michelle Krastanov, she's the CEO of Acacia Cap, an advisory firm that is licensed under the JSE to provide advisory, what they call designated advisory for the junior market on the JSE, and then sponsorship advisory for the main market, the main board of the JSE. So she approached me a week ago, Oliver, and she says to me, hey, man, we've got this IPO. I won't mention the industry. Would you like to participate? She knows we always participate. What I've learned, we are an institutional investor as Veritas. What I've learned is that we always get the shares at a discount to the price the company will be listing at, to the debut price. I've always learned that. And at the end, when the company debuts the market, we are the ones who sell to the public at a higher price than the price we bought. Not because the price became high on the date of the market, it was high from the time we bought. So the privilege that is afforded to institutional investors is never given to private people, which led us to even decline over $73 million investment in Agility, all in the name of making sure that we did a crowdfunding that would allow the people of Africa to be the first ones to own the shares of Agility. And at the time that Agility finally debuts on the market, they will be the ones offloading some of their holdings to the institutional players. So the model we've used, it's more debt dominated, because I wouldn't say they are buying, I would say they are committing, because we have provided over 95%, I think around 95% to 90% vendor finance for them every time they participate in a round. So they would pay 5 to 10% of the value of the shares, and then we throw in that instrument that covers the rest of the shares, and that same instrument is payable over dividends, is repaid back from dividend yields over a certain time, a period of time. It's been a very fruitful exercise, Oliver. It took us longer to raise the money we wanted, but one thing I can tell you, we will sleep better at night, knowing that when this company really takes off, it has taken off already. I'm talking about now on the market. When it really takes off, there's a lot of lives that are going to change with it.
When you close your crowdfunding round on Friday, do you have an idea around what the final share structure will look like of Agility? That is to say, how many shares are delegated and owned by those who invested on the crowdfunding drive? How many will be institutional? How many will be to founders and directors invested in the company? and wherever else that might be split towards. Can you give us an idea of what that will look like?
I will be honest, there is no institutional player. Even a week ago, I was invited to a webinar that was prepared by our marketing director, Mrs. Zanele Mbogazi Nkambule. I was invited to that webinar, and there was a group from Dubai that also wanted to buy into the crowdfunding exercise. And remember now, for the past month, we've not been raising money. We are just allowing people to be part of this. We have raised all the money that we needed. We're fine now. We're no longer in the market to raise any capital. But the funny part is that we still have now that we are having institutional players saying we want to give you money. So to answer your question, there's no institutional player at Agility. We only have the crowds who participated in the crowdfunding, and I wouldn't know the right numbers right now because we use mostly, as I had explained, that the instrument was more, the ratio of the instrument was dominated by the debt part of it being 95%. I know they're still going through the numbers in the office. I wouldn't have them right away because we have these people every day coming in like that.
And once you guys list Kriki, how many shares will you expose through your listing on the JSE? Kriki, you might be, I think we've got a network connectivity issue on Kriki's end.
Kriki, I can answer that question because Kriki, I see she's got a network problem.
Yes.
What is happening is that, as I said, we offered our Agility South Africa is being acquired by Visual on the JSE in a share swap deal. I do not think it would be wise for us to say we know yet, because we don't know what the number of what the share structure is going to look like. All I know is that Visual currently has over 401 million shares outstanding right now, subject obviously to the full DD that they've been conducting on Agility South Africa, and then it would now lead to the valuation of the transaction by means of how many shares would be issued to Agility Africa for the acquisition of Agility South Africa. That would then increase from that 401 million shares to whatever the number that will be agreed to post the approval of the due diligence.
Fantastic. We've got about 5 minutes left on this webinar, and I do want to go back to the chat box and take a few more questions. Oh, there is a product-related question that came in earlier that I forgot to put to you, Mandla, but I will ask this now. What is the cost of maintenance service to the bikes, and who is your after-sales support partner as far as maintenance and service is concerned?
I don't think I'm allowed to mention the name of the group now, but I'll tell you they are the largest in the world. We are the ones who've delayed the signing of the deal. We have a deal already on the table, but we've delayed it. They are the largest in the world. They are number one service in the world. So you might go and check without me saying the words. So they are providing in a collaborative structure with Agility, servicing, maintenance, and motor plan, which is a 3-year program that we provide. It comes as part of the package. So you don't pay for service for that period.
Oh, that's amazing. And on the dealership end, you would obviously then provide that to dealership franchise owners, that level of support.
Yes, we do. They do. Every dealership of Agility, except for the Mini X, will be doing service. Every dealership.
Fantastic. And just the last question related to dealership and franchise ownership. Luzuko Koti on the chat box just wants to know about, Cricket did speak about this earlier, about the necessary marketing support that would come from that. And it's obviously through a massive over-the-top marketing campaign that you start seeing massive adoption, people buying into it, the name becoming a household name and that sort of stuff. But at the moment, what is the marketing drive at the moment? Is it an institutional one? That's to say, you're marketing Agility, the organization, or is it a product-driven one where Agility, the products are being marketed, how much money is the institution pumping into that marketing exercise to ensure success?
Is that for Cricky?
That's for you, man. I don't know if we have Cricky back. Cricky, do we have you back?
You can rephrase the question again for me.
Cricky, do we have you back by any chance?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Fantastic. We've got Cricky back.
Did you hear the question, Cricky?
Ooh, it seems we may still have connectivity issues on Cricky's end.
Okay, you can rephrase the question, Oliver, and answer it.
Unfortunately, we still have connectivity on Cricky's end. But, man, simply put, the marketing support that you are giving franchise owners, what is the marketing plan there? How much money is the organization putting into marketing altogether? And is it a product-driven marketing plan, or is it a brand-driven marketing plan of Agility, the organization? And I'm asking this to speak to the point of the success of adoption.
Yeah, it's the combination of both, Oliver. I could say that the budget is millions. It's millions. It's over 10 million rands for marketing that we are putting in for the next 18 months to ensure that we get where we support. It's a combination of both, of marketing of the brand and also the marketing of the vehicles. Each model. I'll give you an example. We've got the new product that we're going to be dropping in the market as well, which is a Somizi brand, which also has a separate budget from the rest of the budget that we have allocated to all the vehicles, which has to have a targeted approach. This bike of Somizi will also be sold by all the dealerships, but we take charge of the entire marketing of every franchise. So there's no franchise who should worry about brand positioning, about marketing. It is covered because our job, Oliver, is to just get the brand there, to get the marketing there. We do not sell bikes to public. We don't sell vehicles to public. Our job is to build the company. So they have to worry about selling to the public. We will worry about the marketing and the budgeting over that marketing. Every store that we set up, every dealership franchise we set up, we will promote it to the best of our ability, as we've been doing already. We are launching in July, in the midst of July. We are opening Cape Town. I think on the 20th, we will be opening the dealership of Agility in Cape Town, the one that we opened on the 28th. It will be officially going into business now, selling on the 20th of July.
Oh, fantastic stuff. And people can then start walking into that dealership, buying, swapping, and all of the other services that will come out of there. Just the last question before I close off the questions from the audience, and then I'll give each panelist an opportunity to just give us some closing remarks. But just the last question here. I don't know if we've got Clicky back on. If we do, I'd like her to answer this. But if not, Manda, please do answer it. Kaya and Drover would like to know, greetings all, what happens to the current stock after the acquisition finalization of both Agility and Visual Holdings?
What happens to the?
What happens to the current stock after the acquisition finalization of both Agility and Visuals? At
the moment, the transaction is at a very critical stage. We're waiting for the completion of the DD. I would not be able to answer those questions, Oliver, until such time that we know for real how the DD is going, and if the DD is approved, and then everything that has to do with the listed company will be made known through the SENS announcement. I would be punished by the JSE to start speaking things that are not public information here.
Okay, and just lastly, between now and Friday, those who would still like to rush and buy some shares through the crowdfunding model, what are the costs? What's the process to do so?
They can call the office on 011-367-0636. They will get help. 011-367-0636.
Okay, just that's where we're going to leave the audience questions. Thank you so much to all the participants who had asked questions and commented. So many positive comments coming in. We won't be able to read all of them at the moment. But like I said, a information pack will be made available to all attendees for their perusal, and they'll be able to engage with the Agility team anywhere going forward in terms of any of the technical questions that they may have. And I want to close up this round by asking each panelist to give us just a parting shot on their end. And Kiki, I'm going to ask you second to give you an opportunity to just unmute yourself and see if we can get your video back online. But everyone, Middleton, I'd like to start with you. Is there optimism on your end about the future of EV? And you spoke glowingly of the technological advancements that you predict to happen over the next couple of months, years, that will change the industry. But what is your level of optimism, particularly for Agility? And is this something that you personally will be keeping an eye on and perhaps even getting involved in?
So I am already involved. I think just to start, Top Gear South Africa is committed to educating the customers and consumers and the public about electric vehicles. So we've got a dedicated electric section on our website where everything that we cover in terms of electric vehicles sits on there. We've got 2 dedicated magazines every year that's dedicated to electric vehicles and everything that surrounds it. Something that we're quite sort of excited about. On the 9th of September, we're producing quite a big content piece on World EV Day, which is the 9th of September, where we're going to be producing content to showcase exactly what we're speaking about today. What is electric? How does it change my life? Should I even dip my feet in? So we're going to be doing that in September. So just something to bear in mind. But what I can say is, the electric world is amazing. We've been privileged to drive a number of electric cars, and it's fantastic. The products are amazing. Today we've spoken a lot about agility and two-wheeled mobility, which is great. But I can tell you, having driven, as I say, all the electric cars available in South Africa today, they're fantastic products. They really are. And I think there are about, off the top of my head, another 6 new electric cars that are going to be launched between now and December, from Toyota, from Audi, from Mercedes-Benz, from BMW. So these are the brands we know and we love, and we, huge fans of these brands, and they sell really well. But they're pushing electric cars into our market, and from our experience, the product is great. And I think, just to say, I know that there were the early adopters that bought the cars in the beginning, but I think we need to be moving to a point where I know there's a number of consumers saying, well, should I, shouldn't I, is it worth the risk? What I can say is there's much less risk than there was before. And you can, a great electric car now does 470 Ks to a charge, which is pretty much what you get in your X5 petrol. It's a good amount of kilometers. There's just a learning and a mind shift that needs to happen, and I certainly encourage consumers to jump in. So that would be my parting shot. It's here, and as much as there's a lot of red tape and a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of difficulty in terms of the infrastructure we've spoken about today, the products are here and they can be bought and owned and enjoyed. And I certainly am a big fan of electric cars. If you like speed and performance, they're a good option. So thank you for the opportunity. It's just been great to chat to you guys. We look forward to seeing what the world will look like in the future of electric cars.
Everyone, Middleton, thank you so much for joining this panel. I really appreciate your parting shot there. Mandla, just to give you an opportunity to wrap it up in 2 minutes, what's your parting shot?
Jobs are being lost, Oliver. And most of these jobs will never be recovered again. We hope that the government is aware that now it needs to come up with strategies and means to support industries that will create new jobs that are coming with the change that we see in the world. Trying to save them or bring back those that are lost is not going to happen. If the industry of EV is going to change any life, it should start in creating jobs as it evolves. We're looking for new jobs that will replace the jobs that our people have lost. And without the government support, it's going to be very hard for us to get there. I'm calling on the government, calling on you guys. Please come and help us. We need your support. The industry needs you. And I can promise you one thing. It's going to create jobs that are needed by each economy that is willing to invest in it.
Manja Lamba, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Everyone Middleton, thank you so much for your time. Clicky Duplessis, thank you so much for your time. Just unfortunate that we kept losing in and out due to connectivity issues. Thank you to everybody who participated in this webinar. Really, really appreciate it. And on all digital platforms where Agility is present, you can always engage over there. If you're a member of this webinar, you did sign up using an email address, and so an information pack will be sent to you for your perusal and for your benefit. Thank you very much to everybody who participated. My name is Oliver Dixon. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Good day.